Dr. Molefi. I'm Molefi Asante. I have been Molefi Asante since 1973. I'm delighted to be here. I'm just honored to be here. Oh my, and so many great people here. The Honorary Dr. Green, I mean a visionary of the highest class. I'm delighted to be asked to be here in your honor. It is wonderful to see you, and also to see everybody from Educators to Africa. And Dr. Robinson, one of my mentors, just really delighted to see you. Everybody here is my friend, really. Everybody, because everywhere I go, I see you. And any question about Africa, you are present. So, and anything happening in Philadelphia around Africa, you can expect that at least one or two people from Educators to Africa will be there. You are the people. You are the ones who have made our city the city that it is in regards to Africa. And I think that it must have been meant to be that 38 people who would get that call and would take that call and go to Africa would be, I mean, you didn't even know when you went that you would be transforming the way we thought about education and the way we thought about educating our children. But you did. You have done it. I am really honored. I mean, I can't think of any greater honor that I could have than to be speaking before an audience of people who I don't have to explain anything to. You don't know how, that feels good. That's just good for me. So let me start, and let me just tell you, I'm going to talk a bit about Obama and African policy. And I want to start by saying that, you know, speaking about President Obama is almost like speaking about W.B. Du Bois. I remember once in my classes at Temple University when I started talking about Du Bois, and then I said, well, you know, Du Bois had some problems with Marcus Garvey, and I began to explain these situations, and students got upset with me. You criticized Du Bois. You can't criticize Du Bois. I said, well, Du Bois was human. He was just like all of us. We all make mistakes. We're all human. We have flaws. And his attack on Garvey was a mistake. And so you go back and say, that doesn't take away from the fact that he was the greatest African-American scholar of his generation. So it's extremely important. So when I say President Obama, I love President Obama. In fact, President Obama is the smartest president that has served this country in my lifetime. I don't think that there is a better, more intelligent, quicker student of world affairs or domestic affairs that I have seen in the presidential house than President Obama. So I was a supporter and am a supporter of President Obama. But in saying that, I also recognize that he is the President of the United States of America. And the United States of America, of course, the most powerful country in the world, is also one of those countries in the world that creates trouble for everybody else. And this country has created lots of trouble, even under the Obama administration. And what it shows is that almost regardless of who you put in the presidential palace, a mansion, or a house, or White House, that anybody you put up there, if you cannot change the fundamental structures of the society, that person will basically be a captive of the corporate interest. And basically, Obama is a captive of the corporate interest in this country. Now, let me explain what I mean. I think that this is the Du Bois phenomenon, let me say, because I see y'all looking at me. He can do a lot, and he has done a lot. But there are some things that because of the structure of the society, and some things because of the advice that he has received, has caused him to trip up on African affairs. For example, when he pulled the United States out of the race conference, that was just like Bush. You say, we're not going to go to the international meeting to discuss racism. Well, you're the first black president in the United States of America. You are president of a country that has a racist history, And you ought to go and sit at the table with all the other nations of the world and discuss racism. But he said, no, we're not going. We're not going because we don't like the way they talk about Israel. Well, even when they decided that, well, we're not going to say Zionism is racism, he still said we're not going. That's a bad policy. And people have noted that. That was a bad policy on his part. Now, of course, the State Department, which is responsible for international policy, following the president's ideas, is directed by Hillary Clinton. So the relationship that, or the front that the United States government shows to the world about its foreign policy comes through Hillary Clinton. Let me explain something to you. No president of the United States of America, since I have been on this earth, has ever had the best interest of Africa at the core of its foreign policy. That's true with the Obama administration. In fact, the Obama administration has continued the policies of the Bush administration in many instances. So that what we see on the African continent is further eroding of the political power of African states and nations themselves vis-a-vis the United States of America, whether it's in trade, or whether it is in political influence, whether it's in search for oil or minerals. The United States has made agreements, bilateral agreements with African nations that basically undermine the development of the growth of those African countries. Take Chad, for example, which is a very small country in terms of population, mostly desert. Since the U.S. decided to build a military base in Chad, you got the Chadian people basically dependent on the United States government for their livelihood. Because, of course, who would turn down, I mean, we think today maybe it's not much money, $20 million. It's not much money. But $20 million in a poor country like Chad is a lot of money. And so fundamentally what America is able to gain by throwing around money like that is to gain the commitment and the loyalty of many of these administrations in the African continent. This has been a problem. It will continue to be a problem. Under Condoleezza Rice, we saw the greatest increase in the number of military bases of the United States in history. And that was under her administration as Secretary of State. We saw more than 7 or 8 bases established, military bases in Africa under Condoleezza Rice. I think that that's continuing under the Hillary Clinton administration of the State Department and under the Obama administration. So what do I think has to happen? I think that the pressure has to come from the grassroots. I don't even think it can come from the Congressional Black Caucus. I've watched the Congressional Black Caucus and I've been ashamed of the Congressional Black Caucus because the Congressional Black Caucus has basically followed along with the general practices of the American government toward the continent of Africa.